Hi there, welcome to Create with Copper. Today we're making this cute little wire wrapped ring. And if you want to see more jewellery making tutorials like this one, hit that subscribe button. Now let's get wrapping. The design of this ring can be adapted for different shapes and sizes of bead, but for this tutorial I'm using an 8mm round moonstone. So the materials you need are 1mm diameter or 18 gauge copper wire, 0.4mm diameter or 26 gauge copper wire, and the bead. And the tools you need are flat nose pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters, a ring mandrel and an awl. So I've got two pieces of the 1mm or 18 gauge wire here that are about 25 centimetres long, which is around 10 inches. And for the 0.4 or 26 gauge wire, I need a piece about 1.5 metres long, which is about 5 feet. So I'm going to start by weaving the shank of the ring. And I want to end up with equal amounts of both the frame wires and the weaving wire at either end of this weave. So I'm going to start in the centre of both the frame and the weaving wires. And I'm just going to wrap that 0.4mm weaving wire 3 times around one of the frame wires. Then I'll add in the other frame wire and go over to that frame wire. And I've gone down and under that wire. I'm going to go round that wire 3 times. I'll then come back over to the first wire and wrap 3 times around that wire. And this is how the weave will continue along the length of the shank, wrapping 3 times over each wire and then moving between them. Each time I move over to the other wire, I'm going down between the 2 wires. This is just the corset weave without any gap between the frame wires. So if you want more details on that weave, check out the video in the card above or the description below. And then to keep everything even, I'll turn the piece around and do the same number of weaves on the other side. And I'll just continue this weave until I've got the length that I want. Now I believe that's about the length I need. I do tend to just estimate this, and then I can check it when I shape it around the mandrel. This particular design tends to stretch a little bit as you make it. So at the moment I want the weaving wires to meet around the mandrel 2 sizes smaller than I want the finished ring. And I'm going for a finished size N, so that's the size L. And then you can just add some more weaves if you need them. I've woven the shank to the length that I want and made sure that those weaving wires are facing each other on the inside as the frame wires cross. And I now just need to pull those frame wires apart a little bit to accommodate the bead. I'm then going to thread the bead onto one of the weaving wires and then take the other weaving wire through in the opposite direction. So they'll cross over in the middle of the bead. I'll then pull those weaving wires through until they're tight and the bead's sitting between the frame wires. I then need to fix that in place. I'll do a few wraps one side to make sure that it's fixed in position. And then continue the weave. So it's the same weave as I've done for the shank. I want enough of the weave each side to take around the bead. So once I've got some of that weave done, I'll put the ring back onto the ring mandrel and then carefully bend those frame wires around the side of the bead. And I want to make sure that they're hugging the bead quite tightly. And then to fix that into position, I'm going to take the weaving wire down through the shank that the weaving wire's just met. And I'll just make a space for it with the awl. Pull that weaving wire quite tightly through, around the ring shank, and then back up to continue the wrapping. I'll do exactly the same on the other side. And once I've taken that weaving wire through, I'll finish the current set of 3 on the outside weaving wire, and then weave another set of 3 on each frame wire. That fixes the bead into position, and then we're ready for our embellishment. All 4 of the frame wires are going to wrap around and hug the bead. I'm leaving the inside wires bare and coiling the outside wires with the remaining weaving wire. I'll just coil both of those outside wires until I think I've got enough. And then as these wires go around the bead, I'm going to take that coiled wire under the bare wire and then back over the top of it. I'm then curving the coiled wire back on itself to eventually create a loop on the end. To hold it all in position, I'm going to take that weaving wire back through the weave on the shank. I'm getting a little bit short of the weaving wire now, so I can use my flat nose pliers to help. Make sure the frame wires are where I want them. And then I'll bring that weaving wire back up and coil a few more times around the base wire. I can then trim the last bit of the weaving wire off and finish the loops on both of the frame wires. So the bare wire that's hooked underneath will have a little loop that just sits by the side of the bead. And I'll make another little loop on the coiled wire on the outside. And I'll finish the other side in exactly the same way. It's worth doing all of this at the same time to make sure it all looks even. And then I can trim off the excess. And use my flat nose pliers to make sure those wire ends are tucked in. We can just pop it back on the mandrel to make sure it's rounded back up again and check the size. And it is indeed now a size N. And that's your finished ring. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please press the like button below. And don't forget you can subscribe to my channel and head over to my website for more hints, tips and projects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.